sweeteners for the middle class, a firm hold on fiscal consolidation and continuity on capex. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's 8th consecutive budget aims to give a fillip to consumption by putting money in the hands of the middle class. Also, as they say, no news is good news. For the markets, it is status quo as there is no change on capital gains. It wasn't expected. The big headline is the change in the income tax slabs. The government will forego 1 lakh crore rupees in direct tax revenues this year. That is the big story. That is the big headlines. As we've been pointing out, the 3 C's that the government intended to focus on, the prioritization has changed. It is consumption, capex and consolidation that the government has taken forward. We're now joined by Rathin, Distinguished Professor at the Kautilya School of Public Policy. Also with us, Singh, Chairperson of the 15th Finance Commission, and Surjit, Bhalla, former Executive Director for India at the IMF. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. Mr. Singh, let me come to you first, sir. As I pointed out, it's the 3 C's: consumption, capex and consolidation. The government clearly prioritizing consumption this time around.
So I think that, Shereen, that's not such a bad thing. If sharp changes in the income tax slab leaves higher disposable income in the hands of an average taxpayer, that has virtuous cycles in terms of what that higher disposable income is likely to do by boosting demand and consumption in the economy. But as you pointed out, this has been done alone, even though this really meant foregoing 1 lakh crores of revenue on taxes. This is not asymmetrical to the path of fiscal consolidation, which has been outlined rather clearly in the macroeconomic policy statement. I've heard many commentaries casting doubts on the government's commitment of fiscal consolidation and in terms of debt. But if one looks at page 12 of the macroeconomic policy statement, one finds that the fiscal deficit, having reached over 9% in 2021, is planning to come down to 4.4% in terms of the budget proposals, a fairly sharp contraction in the fiscal deficit. Equally, since we know that the investor community, particularly rating agencies, are very interested in the path of the debt and debt to GDP, the debt trajectory, which is also outlined there, really projects that debt to GDP of the central government will come down to just over 50% by 2031, of course, if there are no disruptions of an unusual kind which take place. Now, therefore, both in terms of the fiscal record and the fiscal consolidation, and in terms of the debt coming down in a significant southward direction, is a very strong signal to rating agencies, to the investor community, that macroeconomic stability has not been compromised, notwithstanding the far-reaching changes which have been taken place in the direct taxes, coupled with the fact that next week we are likely to see the new tax laws, which are going to be simpler, cleaner, more easily understood by an average assessee. And it will therefore give meaning and content to faceless assessment. She has also outlined proposals of how to bring down the multiple assessments which are pending in appeals of various kinds. So if one takes a holistic view of that, one finds that there are very significant changes which have been outlined in the budget.
Significant changes outlined in the budget, and particularly as far as the fiscal consolidation roadmap is concerned, a credible roadmap being presented. That's the view coming in from NK Singh. But let me bring Surjit, Bhalla into the conversation. Surjit, Bhalla, many thanks. You were on the program yesterday when we were discussing the economic survey, and you were an advocate for the government to move on consumption and provide tax relief, and that's exactly what they've done. Surjit, Bhalla, your headline for Budget 2025.
Look, I will break my headlines into 2 components. The non-tax component, which is the calling card of this budget, and the tax component. On the non-tax component, I think every sound, every bite, every policy was very, very welcome and in the right direction. So not a single discordant note. I had thought the same thing about the tax, because it was something that I've been arguing, many others have been arguing, and finally there was delivery. Until one looks at the fine print, and maybe NK can clarify this, I don't know how much will be clarified and perhaps made right in the tax bill, which will be introduced next week. The problem is as follows, or that I see as follows. Until 12 lakhs, there's no, forget the 75,000, until 12 lakhs, there is no tax. But if you earn 12 lakhs and 1 rupee, you will pay 60,000 rupees of tax, because the initial slab, which in all countries of the world is where the tax schedule starts, but the initial slab in India is 0 to 4 lakhs. So 0 to 4 lakhs, you don't pay anything. 4 to 8 lakhs, you pay 5%, and 8 to 12 lakhs, you pay 10%. So NK, is this correct? That there is no marginal whatever, as every other country does, and as India has done until the new tax law was brought in. So maybe this is what the tax bill will clarify. Assume the tax bill makes this right. This is the most superb budget I could have imagined. Absolutely. And I have compared it, will this be a 1991 moment? But 1991 was a huge crisis. So if this is as reform oriented as, and given that our growth rate, bad enough as it is, it's 6.4%, it's not possible to have a 1991 moment. Again, thank you very much, because you don't want a 1991, pre-1991 situation. But if it is not, if it is as it is stated to be, then I think it's very disturbing, and I hope that the government will reconsider. So NK, is the new tax bill going to make this right? Or am my understanding, I hope my understanding of the whole situation is wrong.
Well,
Mr. Singh?
Surjit, yes. Well, Surjit, I would urge you, notwithstanding your domain understanding, that why not wait and see the fine print, since next week is not too far away, and see the fine print in the new tax proposals. But I think that you have complimented not only the government, but the finance minister as a very far-reaching sort of changes. I myself, although I have been part of the Ministry of Finance for very long and had done the last big simplification of the income tax in a very significant way, when I really am applauding the fact that really this is taking a hit of 1 lakh crore is not small. Because by taking a hit of 1 lakh crore, one would have expected, Surjit, that the FIS would have gone through the roof and that the debt would have gone further northwards. But if you look at the two as symmetrically, both the hit on the revenue side, along with the consistency and the symmetry on the overall macroeconomic framework, I think that you are right that in some ways this is a very far-reaching budget, even though India is not undergoing the kind of balance of payments crisis which we all know in 1991. And this is one of the first time, therefore, that this kind of a far-reaching reform has taken place without a crisis. And that is something which we need to certainly applaud.
I'll come back to you, Surjit, in just a second. Yes, Mr. Singh, go ahead.
Yeah. One other, which is not part of the budget, but is part of the announcement, which is also going to be far-reaching, and which is on FDI and BITS, that there is a new wording of the BITS law, and that is something that will also be far-reaching in terms of investment, in terms of growth, in terms of technology. We have to await that, but I think it'll come soon. So the sound bites as well as the direction is all in the right direction. I just hope, so I agree with NK. I'm going to wait just a few more days. But if it is
Surjit,
as we expect, it's a fantastic occasion for India. And this will propel the growth rate also upwards. And NK, you're very right. You know, what's this problem with more consumption?